Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's session, which is Mindfulness for Individual and Community Resilience and Wellbeing at Tufts. It's facilitated by the co-founders of Holistic Life Foundation, Andres Smith, Atman Smith, and Andres Gonzalez. Many thanks, first of all, to the co-sponsors of this event, the Tisch College Initiative on Social Emotional Learning and Civic Engagement, Tufts Mindfulness and Resilience Collaborative, and the Tufts Office of the President, and the Tufts Division of Student Diversity and Inclusion, or DSDI. During this session, this dynamic team is going to focus on ways that mindfulness practices are connected to individual and community well-being. And they'll also guide us through practices that foster social emotional resilience, stress reduction, focused attention, and self-care in ways that are in service of our collective well-being, anti-racism, and civic engagement. And I just want to take a moment also to introduce myself. My name is Anna Ehrlich, and as a Tufts grad student, I really am excited about this kind of event because I think there's such a need for this conversation. We are living in a pandemic. We are living in a public health crisis. We are living in a time of extreme racism and divide in our country. And I'm eager for our participants and our co-hosts to share some of their knowledge and experiences with us to deepen our collective identity as a community. So with that said, Deborah Donahue-Keegan will now introduce our facilitators. Deborah is a Tisch College Senior Fellow and an Education Department faculty member, and is the Associate Director of the Tisch College Social Emotional Learning and Civic Engagement Initiative. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Anna, and welcome everyone. We're so happy that you're all here with us. And I'm here to introduce Ali Smith and Atman Smith and Andres Gonzalez, who are co-founders of both the Holistic Life Foundation and the Involution Group. They started conceptualizing what became the Holistic Life Foundation when they were all undergrads at the University of Maryland, College Park. They launched the organization in Baltimore after they all graduated. So the Holistic Life Foundation was founded in 2001 in Baltimore, and it seeks to improve social, community, educational, and emotional outcomes in low-income, underserved communities by providing multifaceted programming to empower youth and adults and families. And the mission of their recently launched Involution Group is to provide services that enhance the human experience by helping others develop skills to become more present and focused, attentive, and healthy through corporate mindfulness programs, as well as individual and community meditation coaching. So Ali Smith has many years of experience teaching yoga and mindfulness to diverse populations. Through his work at the Holistic Life Foundation, he has helped to develop the pilot yoga and mindfulness programs at public and private schools, drug treatment centers, juvenile detention centers, mental crisis facilities, and retreat centers nationally and internationally. Ali has authored a series of children's books. He's co-authored several yoga and mindfulness-based curricula and developed numerous workshops and trainings. And his work has been featured on the CBS News, CNN, NBC Nightly News, PBS, as well as in Oprah Magazine and Forbes. And Atman Smith, who is Ali's brother, has been teaching yoga and mindfulness to a diverse population in Baltimore since 2002, with underserved and high-risk youth in the Baltimore City public schools and in drug treatment centers, wellness centers, and colleges. And his work has been focused in many publications as well. Andres Gonzalez has taught yoga to diverse populations as well around the world, including Baltimore-based public schools, drug treatment centers, homeless shelters, and many other venues. And I'll note that Andres has been a frequent guest speaker in Tufts education classes that I've taught over the years. It's always a highlight of the semester when he joins us. He has partnered with the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and Penn State on a big study, and is now a published author in the Journal of Children's Services. So I met Ali and Atman and Andres about 6 years ago, and it has been such a gift to stay connected with them. I have learned so much, and I'm so, so grateful that today you all are here with the Tufts community virtually to share your stories, your wisdom, your humor, to teach valuable skills for resilience, well-being, and civic engagement. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Deborah, and it's great to connect with you, even though it's just virtually. Hopefully, COVID goes somewhere soon, so it doesn't have to be virtual.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again. I always like joining the Tufts family. Hopefully my video can stay on. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, but you'll be able to see my face for as long as possible, but I'm glad to be here.
All right, and we're gonna start off with a practice. So if you could move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, back, neck, and head aligned, and you can grab your right ankle, and then you can take your right leg behind your head. Just kidding. While yoga and mindfulness practices are really good, not taking your leg behind your head, but the practices are good because, communities that deal with trauma, the trauma gets stored in the body. And the yoga practices, the physical movement, the breathing, and all that stuff kind of releases that trauma that's stored in the body. But this is going to be a loving kindness practice or a variation of one. In this human experience, it's just human nature to kind of love other people before you love yourself, take care of other people before you take care of yourself. And that leads to burnout and a lot of other negative emotions like jealousy and depression and, a lot of other things. So this practice is all about filling your inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself. So it makes it that much easier to love and take care of others going forward without once again burning yourself out. So it's a great practice to make sure that you're able to give 110% of yourself, be present and grounded when you're around other people, whether it's service or loved ones. So for real this time, move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, back, neck, and head aligned. I invite you to close your eyes or welcome you if you feel like doing it or feel comfortable enough doing it. All the breathing that we're going to be doing is all in and out through our nose. So we're going to take a couple deep breaths together. So inhale long, slow, and deep through your nose, filling your stomach up with air. Fill it all the way up. And exhale, push all that air out. Squeeze your stomach in. Remember, the breathing is all in and out through our nose. Inhale deep again, once again with that long, slow, deep breath in through our nose, filling our stomach up with air. Fill it all the way up. And exhale through our nose, pushing all that air out, squeezing our belly button to our spine. Inhale deep one more time with that long, slow, deep breath through our nose, filling our stomach up with air. Fill it all the way up. And exhale through your nose, push all that air out, squeezing your stomach in, push all that air out. Now you all can just breathe on your own at a nice natural pace. Don't put any effort into it, but just make sure you're breathing in and out through your nose. And we're going to start using our imaginations. With every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the positive energy that the earth has to offer us inside our body with that in-breath, whatever it looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as you inhale. And as you exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out any of the negativity from within, any stress, any anger, any jealousy, any regret, any sicknesses or ailments, anything at all that we know that's inside of us that's not healthy for us. We want to use our imagination and see and feel it leave our body with the breath. Once again, on that inhale, pulling in that positive energy from the earth, and on that exhale, pushing out that negativity from within. Once again, that stress, anger, jealousy, regret, sicknesses or ailments, anything at all that's inside of us that we know that's not healthy for us. We're going to use our imaginations and see and feel it leave our body with that exhale. And just like in life, when you meditate or do a silent reflection or a loving kindness practice, distractions can arise. If you do get distracted with a thought, sound, or sensation, don't beat yourself up. Once again, just know it's the nature of the human mind. Acknowledge it, and then just redirect yourself back to that breath. And once again, on that inhale, pulling in that positive energy from the earth, and on that exhale, pushing out that negativity from within. Once again, whatever it looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time, with every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling all the healing energy and oxygen coming from the trees, plants, and bodies of water inside of our body with that breath. And we want to feel and see it energize and replenish our internal muscles, bones, and organs. So with that inhale, feel and see that happen. And with that exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out all the stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. So once again, on that inhale, pulling in that healing oxygen from the trees, plants, and bodies of water, energizing and replenishing our muscles, bones, and organs. And on that exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. And just know whatever you feel and see is exactly right. It's exactly what you're supposed to feel and see as you breathe. And the point of meditation or silent reflection or these loving kindness practices is all about extending the time that you can keep your mind focused. If you can only stay focused for 3 breaths and you get distracted once again, never beat yourself up. Just acknowledge that distraction and then redirect yourself back to that breath. And remember, on that inhale, pulling in that healing oxygen, on that exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, and try to get 4 breaths and 5 breaths. Once again, it's all about extending the time that you can keep your mind focused. But once again, never beat yourself up. If you lose focus, it's just the nature of the human mind. Acknowledge what distracted you and then redirect yourself back onto the breath. And once again, on that inhale, pulling in that healing oxygen from the trees, plants, and bodies of water, energizing your muscles, bones, and organs. And on that exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time we're going to focus on all those people that we love, whether it's family or friends, no matter how far away they live, no matter if they're living or not, love knows no boundaries. So with our breath, all we're going to do is focus on sending our loved ones love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as we breathe. Sending our loved ones love, no matter the distance, no matter if they're alive or not. Once again, love has no boundaries. So with our breath, really feel and see yourself sending love to your loved ones with that breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, just know that's right. And once again, if you do get distracted, never beat yourself up. That happens, just the nature of the mind. Acknowledge that distraction, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation, and then redirect yourself back to the breath. And once again, sending love to your loved ones with that breath, whatever it looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as you breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time we're going to focus on all those people that stress us out or make us angry, whether it's our family or friends, co-workers or classmates, clients, people in our communities, politicians, people sitting on the opposite side of the political line, whoever it is that stresses you out or makes you angry, we're going to send them love with the breath. Even though they stress you out or make you angry, they probably need love more than anyone else. And you all know whatever you put out there comes back tenfold, so always lead with love. So once again, with our breath, we're sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. It's a great way to evict people from renting space in your mind, or in other words, a great release. So once again, send love to those people that stress you out or make you angry. We're sending them love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as you breathe. And another reminder, once again, just know that this practice is all about extending the time that you can keep your mind focused. If you do lose focus, once again, don't beat yourself up. That's just the nature of the human mind. Acknowledge what distracted you, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation. And then just redirect yourself back to that breath. And once again, sending love to those people that stress you out or make you angry with your breath. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And we've sent love to people that we love. We sent love to people that stress us out or make us angry. Now it's time to send love to the most important person in your life, and that's yourself. Like I said at the beginning, if you start off with your inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself, it makes it that much easier to love and take care of others going forward without burning yourself out. So this time with your breath, just focus on sending yourself, your true self-love with your breath, and fill up that inner foundation full of self-love. So once again, with your breath, send love to yourself, your true self, with that breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as you breathe. And just another reminder, just like in life, distractions can arise when you meditate or do loving kindness. If they do, have kindness for yourself and just don't beat yourself up. Acknowledge the distraction and then just redirect yourself back on that breath. And once again, sending yourself, your true self love with your breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, feel and see that as you breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time with our breath, we're going to send love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within, animals, plants, humans, inanimate objects, anything at all that resides within planet Earth or Mother Earth and Mother Earth herself. With our breath, we're going to send love. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe, sending love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within, sending love with our breath. And once again, you all know the practice is all about extending the time that you can keep your mind focused. Never beat yourself up when you do lose focus. Just acknowledge the distraction, then redirect yourself back on the breath. And once again, sending love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within with your breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to slowly bring ourselves away from the breath and back to our bodies. So if your eyes are closed, you can keep them closed. And you can start off just by wiggling your toes. And you can wiggle your fingers. You can roll your ankles and wrists. You can do a neck roll both ways just to stretch your neck out a little bit. And whenever you get ready, you can slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses, but don't rush. And just know there are many different forms of meditation, grounding practice, and stuff like that. This is just one that, a lot of people have gravitated to, just because a lot of people don't really send themselves love and have their inner foundation full of self-love, and they allow people to rent space in their mind, and this is a good way to kind of counter renting space in your mind and building up that self-love within you. During the course of our training, we'll give you a lot of tools, so hopefully one or two, if not all, will resonate with you all. And I had my alarm go off on purpose during the practice, just because you all are. I heard you all are the best of the best in the institutions that you all go to, and I just wanted to throw you all off, and you all did great by not getting thrown off. Actually, it was time for me to walk my dogs, but I forgot to turn that alarm off.
All right, so thank you all for taking the time to jump on with us this evening. The roots of the Holistic Life Foundation, when we think about it, kind of started with, I guess, social justice and the desire for knowledge. When Atman and I were growing up in West Baltimore, before crack hit our city really hard, the city looked one way and it looks a totally different way now. We grew up there. It was a place of connection. It was a place of family. It was a place of love. The whole community was unified for the greater good of everyone. And our dad, we grew up in West Baltimore. If you all watch The Wire, or if you saw when the Freddie Gray uprising happens, our community was prominently featured there. But that was where we grew up. But again, it was a lot different back then. Our dad actually both of our parents were really into yoga when we were growing up. They were into a lot of different things. Me and Atman grew up vegan. Grew up meditating. So there's a lot of different things going on that are really cool and hip now, but back then really nobody was doing. Our dad's best friend, our godfather, was one of those people that got into yoga in the early 60s and never really got out of it. He was always looking for people to share it with. He was kind of like the hood medicine man. Like when something was wrong, people come to him. He would have, I feel like he would always start with talking to them, like getting their mind in a more positive place, because thought follows action. Then he would give them herbs. He would give them some yoga work, some meditation work, some yoga postures, some breath work, and just kind of like bundle it all together in the hopes of like self-healing, because he believed that the body and the mind and like your spirit were meant to heal itself. Our dad went to him with a prostate issue, and he showed him 4 poses, and our dad was hooked from that point on. So and I grew up with yoga in our home. We didn't really practice any yoga or any breath work growing up. We meditated with our dad. He was into transcendental meditation at the time, so that was kind of what we were kind of stuck with, meditating with him. And then the church we grew up in was based on the Self-Realization Fellowship. It's like the autobiography of a yogi lineage. So there was more subjective meditation that we practiced. But we grew up meditating. When our parents got divorced, the meditation stopped, being vegan stopped, and it all kind of went out the window. So I guess that was around about 5th grade for me, 3rd grade for Atman, between 5th and 6th grade for me, and 3rd and 4th for Atman was when our parents split up, and all those practices went out the window. So we met Andy at the University of Maryland College Park, out partying, and pretty much out partying. Like we just bonded and connected. And just as we were finishing up school, we wanted to know what life was going to be about after college. And it was just, we thought there was definitely more than just the whole get a degree, get married, have kids, retire, and die. Like that was what a lot of our friends, that was the life trajectory of a lot of our friends. We looked, there had to be more. So then we saw a lot of suffering in the world, a lot of what seemed like apathy, people not really helping, caring about people around them, not a lot of love. And so as we started reading, we read books on anything we can get our hands on. And it just left us with more questions than answers. Atman saw a book on our Godfather's altar, old Kundalini yoga book, and was like, yoga can do all this stuff? Like, should make us superheroes. And it was, our teachers, and our Godfather, you'll hear us say Godfather and teacher, Uncle Will synonymously, but it was, he was like, well, nah, like yoga, you tap into like that energy and power and love inside of you, like that universal stuff, your true self. And all the stuff does happen, but that's just kind of the byproduct of the practice. The real product, what you're really trying to get to, like yoga means union. You're trying to unify and unite with your one true self, like your universal self. So I think when we started to graduate, our dad told us not to get jobs. He said that like a lot of his friends were getting downsized and losing their pensions, and like they were kind of getting screwed over by companies that they had given their lives to. And he was like, well, look, don't go get jobs. You guys need to be able to, you're never really going to be, you're going to be hustling to make someone else rich, was pretty much what he said, instead of hustling to make yourself rich. We weren't sure what we were going to do. We knew we weren't going to get jobs. We were going to start our own business. He wasn't too happy when we said we were going to do a nonprofit, because he was like, nonprofit, you're all not going to be making money. So it was one of those things where, he saw like there was a lot of like the distribution of wealth in the United States wasn't really fair. And he also saw that a lot of people got taken advantage of with the work that they were doing. And he also saw with the 3 of us, I mean, like there was going to be a glass ceiling in a lot of the areas that we wanted to work in, where we would be limited because of the color of our skin. And we weren't going to get certain opportunities. We'd have to work harder than other people to get to get a certain equal pay with them. And he was like, don't set yourself up for that. And he wanted to make sure that like we were given the opportunities that he wasn't, he worked in this Baltimore City school system for his entire life. I mean, he coached at college at the end of his working career, but it was mostly working in the school system where someone else told him what he had to do, when he had to do it, and how he had to do it. And even if he didn't agree with it, he still had to comply with those rules. So I think all those things. And then back to the yoga part of it, our uncle, our Godfather, told us that like let's start. If you guys really want to go down this path, I'll show you all everything I know, but you guys got to agree to be teachers, and you got to show up at my house at 4 a.m. the next morning. And we agreed to be teachers. I don't think we knew what that meant at the time, but we were like, well, if you're going to teach us all this stuff, we'll show it to everybody else. And it started off with like a lot of physical practice. I think because he would always say you had to clean up your body. Like you give all these subtle nerve endings in your body. They're called nadis in yoga. There's 72,000 of them, but it's like that's where you feel that subtle energy, that energy you're awakening. And if your physical vessel is dirty, you're not going to feel the energy the way that you should. So he was always about cleaning up the body first with the practice, and then cleaning up the mind with the breath, and then going at your inner light. And he was always, you know, it was one of those things where it was always, the practice got more and more subtle, because he would always tell us you had to be the practice, you had to embody the practice. You couldn't just do it and then walk away from it. It had to be, so it was more, most of the practice that he taught us for, I don't know, for most of the time we were learning from him were practices that had nothing to do with rolling out a mat or twisting up like a pretzel or breathe. It was all about your energy, your mind, and the way that you love yourself and everyone around you. And then, you know, and some of the other things, I mean, some of the other things that led us to do the Holistic Life Foundation, Atman and I growing up in West Baltimore and going to school at Friends School of Baltimore, a private school in North Baltimore, like we saw the disparities in a lot of different ways. Friends School was a very affluent school in a very affluent community. Baltimore is one of the most segregated cities in the United States of America. I think only Milwaukee might be more segregated than Baltimore. But you know, we went to school and had computers. I mean, back then it was like, you know, I mean, like people saw computers in movies. They didn't have, we had an entire computer lab. We had opportunities to go and travel all these places and have all these amazing guest speakers. And our friends that went to the school in our community, in our community, like right around the corner from our house, they didn't have any of these opportunities. So it's just like we were being given, like we were blessed to be able to get into Friends School and be able to go there and take advantage of that opportunity. But I know a lot of the work that we do with the Holistic Life Foundation is about giving our students those opportunities as well, and like exposing them to different things. Because I mean, your scope is only going to be as big as what you're exposed to. So if you're not exposed to certain things, you see them as not tangible for you. I know, like for instance, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, like it's mostly seen, like a lot of people see it as for affluent white women. Like if you look at the cover of Yoga Journal, if you look at where at yoga studios, like that's what it's seen as. But you know, it's kind of cool throughout all the years of doing this. We've been at it for almost 20 years now. Now, because our students see us, they see the young people that have come through our programs and that are teachers now. And you ask kids, and they'll be like, "Well, if you ask them what they want to do for a living, it may have been, I want to be famous. I want to be an actor. I want to be an athlete." But now that a lot of them will say, you'll ask them, they'll say, "I want to teach yoga. I want to teach meditation to people." So it just becomes more tangible with seeing people that look like them doing it and them having access to it. So a lot of things led to us forming HLF. Like it's been a cool process to grow it. Because in the beginning, it was just the three of us trying to do everything administratively, programmatically, and it was just burning us out. We didn't really have the resources that we needed. I think around that time, our organizational budget was probably like $30,000, and we weren't paying ourselves. We volunteered for maybe like 8 years of our lives. Like we would do about 60 hours a week of HLF, and then go work on the weekend at a mental crisis facility to pay the bills, keep the lights on, and we would work 24 hours there. So it was like one never-ending few years. We had some program officers from an organization that helped us out and showed us how to run our organization. And from that point on, like it changed the way that we looked at it. We were running a business. We weren't just doing service work, because, you know, you need resources to help people. Like it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. Like you need resources to help people. You have to hire people. You have to pay them. You have to pay for liability insurance. You have to have rent. Like there's all these costs that come into the picture. So we figured out how to do all those things, and we sat behind desks for probably close to a little over a decade, maybe about a decade. We sat behind desks, maybe like 8 years. It's been a while. And then we got to a point where we could hire people to take all of our administrative roles. So it's kind of divine universal timing. Like right before COVID hit, all of our administrative roles were filled. So we had other people that were doing those things that we could get back to the teaching, the training, the speaking, cultivating relationships with donors, and other things that we, curriculum development, the things that we're really good at, because that's the way that we can help our organization the best. So, you know, it's been a struggle during COVID. You know, a lot of businesses are suffering, ours included. We have a lot of staff that we would like to see working that aren't working. They had to take part-time jobs in other places because a lot of programming, like, you know, yoga is usually face-to-face. A lot of school contracts have slowed down, but things are very slowly kind of starting to creep back in the right direction. But, you know, it sucks to see your staff out of work. We still have one of our senior staff is doing like a daily, like a practice with them once a week online, because a lot of them still want to stay up with their practice and want to have build that community. So that's pretty much where we are now. We got a lot of cool programs going on and a lot of things that we do, but it's pretty much a little bit how we got to where we are now.
I think two things that I want to add are as far as programming, two programs that I'm really excited about. One, we have a virtual program where it's like animations of me, Andy, and Ali, where we teach 11 practices that are evidence-based, trauma-informed, trauma-responsive. It's called Bridging Academics and the Mind, or BAM! And it's really helping out during these COVID times where we have to teach virtually. It used to be a teacher's tool where teachers, we would come in for professional developments and train them first on experiencing the practice so they can understand how it makes them feel, but then give them a menu of when to use the specific practices, whether it's at the beginning of the day, transitional time, before tests and stuff like that. And our whole model is reciprocal teaching, just like our teacher told us to create. He wanted to make us teachers. That's what we're all about, is creating teachers. And, we have 3 phases of it. We had the original 3 phases while it was a teacher's tool. One, it was instructional, where we taught kids how to do the practice, the benefits on your mind and body, and then jumping into the practice. Phase 2, we cut out the instructional part and just jumped into the practice. And phase 3 was bringing the kids up to the front of the room with cue cards to lead their peers through the practice. But since COVID hit, we kind of had to adapt it to an online platform to make it adaptable to smartphones, tablets, and stuff like that. It's still 3 phases, but it's still like the first 2 phases are the same, instructional and practice. But the third phase is a combination, whether it's general practice, stress reduction, helping you get to sleep, and so on. And I think the coolest thing with that now is that we're selling it not only to schools, but school districts, and it's having a positive impact on these kids while they're stuck at home, because they said that the depression and weight gain and a lot of other things are influxing because they're not in school, having gym and being around their peers and stuff like that. And the last thing that I'm really excited about is we have a satellite program. We've been doing work at a Mohawk reservation in the Akwesasne territory in like the Canadian upper New York state border for the past 5 years. And we have now formed a satellite program where we sent 2 of our senior staff to live up there for an entire year, identified some community leaders. One thing Ali always says, the best solutions are homegrown solutions. So, we identified them. We have our staff up there to help them develop a personal practice. A lot of people think that they can just go to a weekend retreat and come back and, be like, oh, I can teach yoga and mindfulness. But it really takes personal practice to be able to go with the ups and downs of, teaching and, trying to be okay with things not being okay in your class and not going as planned. That really takes a practice. And the other reason they're up there is to infuse themselves in the different communities that we're working with in Baltimore up there. So the group leaders can get some on-the-job training. And then Andy, Ali, and I go up there periodically during the year and give them like week-long intensive trainings, observing how they're working in the schools. After the year, we bring our senior staff back, and then we have a satellite program up there, and it's going fantastic. I just wanted to add those 2 things.
Yeah, so every time I hear that story, I think it's so amazing, because I know you all probably got to hear the part where Ali was like, their dad was like, don't get jobs, and I can so vividly remember that time in my life is when I graduated college. I have long hair now. You can't tell because it's all up, but I had long hair then, and I remember coming and seeing Atman one day, and I cut all my hair off. I just graduated, and he's like, "Man, what'd you do? Why'd you cut all your hair off?" And I'm like, "Well, man, I graduated. I gotta get a job." And he's like, "Oh man, no, that's not, like, 'cause we've been talking already about doing this type of work." And I remember how amazing it was, just him like calling his dad, like, "Hey, remember Andy?" And putting me on the phone with him, and his dad being like, "Look, man, like, if you do what you and Ali and I have been talking about doing, then, you know, you can just come into Baltimore, you can focus on, I don't want you to get a job. And just taking myself 20 years back to that day and seeing it, and every time I hear Ali tell the story, it never gets old. It's so amazing. And it's so important for you to have that support system, you know, to have people that do believe in you, that believe in the mission that you're trying to create and you're trying to do. And it's so necessary to have that, you know, that kind of, like, he was like our rock there for us to get us started. And that's kind of what this practice is that I'm gonna share with you all too, is it's the foundation of a lot of what we do. It's just a basic belly breath. It's something that we always start every class with, whether we're working with pre-K kids or elderly homes. Your breath is portable. It's always with you. It's something that you always have. It's something that you can always use to bring yourself back to this present moment, to the centering moment, to now. I can talk about it for hours. I'm not going to go that deep into it because I know we don't have that much time, but I do want to go through some of the main aspects I think that are important, because, you know, I can just tell you, hey, you know, you're supposed to breathe this way. And you could hear that and be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But if you don't hear the science of how it actually works, the way our teacher described it to me had my mind so blown that I had finished college and no one had shown me the right way to breathe. And I was dumbfounded. Like, how isn't this taught to us in elementary school, knowing that this can be a way to self-regulate, knowing that as you become more aware of your stressors and your internal and external bombardment of things that are coming into your life, that you can always go back to your breath and use that. You can see how you feel your breath, and when it's heightened, you know you're getting into that, you know, that sympathetic part of your autonomic nervous system. You're getting in that stress mode, and being able to use your breath to slow yourself down and shift back to the parasympathetic. So I'll try to go as fast as possible, but not too fast at the same time. But I want to give you as much information as possible so you have this tool. So I think the key here is to remember that when you're breathing, you want to kind of envision a baby. An infant breathes perfectly, always breathes in and out of its nose. When it inhales, big belly. When it exhales, push your belly all the way in, right? And really get all that stale CO2 out of our bodies. I'm sure a lot of y'all who are listening have seen a snot bubble before, right? This baby makes that snot bubble. That's because it's not breathing, even if its nose is clogged, the baby doesn't breathe in and out of its mouth. It still breathes in and out of its nose. So that's why you see that little snot bubble. So we want to make sure the main thing you want to focus on is breathing in and out of your nose. If that's the only thing you get out of this breathing exercise, just please start doing that. And then hopefully you can incorporate all the other aspects of the breath. But the main thing is nice, long, deep breaths in and out of your nose, because your nose is three main things. It's a filter, it's a heater, and it's a humidifier. Your filtration system is those nose hairs that line all your nasal cavity. They go down all the way through your lungs. It's cilia that goes down there. So when you're breathing in, the air doesn't go straight into your body. It actually spins around the part right here in our nostrils, and it's cleaning up the air really, really good. And then it goes into our body. So all that dust, dander, germs, viruses, you know, nowadays we're so aware of it because of COVID that we have masks on. So we're not even thinking about it. Before all the COVID stuff hit, Ali and I would always tell people, like, you know, when you're going into these schools and they don't open these windows up and there's no fresh air, all this stagnant air, all this stuff stuck in the air, one person in your classroom gets sick, and it's like dominoes, like everybody in the classroom gets sick because everyone's breathing in and out of your mouth. So you want to make sure always breathing nice, long, deep breaths in and out of our noses to make sure you're getting that filtration system. The humidifying system is the glands in our cheeks right here, the moisture that makes the tears, that brings it in so you're not bringing in dry air. And then the heating system is you have mucous membranes that line your nasal passage. So when you breathe in, you're warming the air. It's very important when it's cold outside. I'm sure you stepped outside, take a breath in through your mouth and you get that, it's like a wheezing sensation. That's what happens when your bronch seize up. So you want to make sure you're breathing nice, long, deep breaths in. You also want to make sure that you're fully exhaling when you're breathing, because you're going to get rid of that stale CO2, but you're also getting rid of ruminating thoughts. Those are the thoughts that aren't allowing us to be present. I mean, right now it's getting close to dinner time, right? So some of y'all might be thinking, hey, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Let's think about this. What's today? Today's Tuesday. Maybe Taco Tuesday. I'll do tacos today, right? How about, are we going to do ground beef, or are we going to do turkey? How many sides am I going to have? Tomatoes, lettuce, maybe should make some guacamole today. Do I have salsa? Is it going to be hot? Right? You're listening to us talk, but all this stuff is still going on in your brains. And I'm sure you've had this happen when you're having conversations even with people, they're talking to you and you just start kind of daydreaming and going off into space. You're still as present as you can be, but you're thinking about all this type of stuff. In the classroom, I am sure there has been a time where you're staring at your professor and you're looking at them, and it's almost like Charlie Brown, where they start getting the wah, 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 because you're just thinking of everything else. Those are the ruminating thoughts. So you want to make sure you fully exhale to get those ruminating thoughts out of your mind. Now, we want to make sure when we're breathing that we're doing a full breath. So we want to use our belly, and that's the main point of this exercise. A lot of times when people take a deep breath, they go like this. They shoot the air up to the upper part of their lungs, where our lungs are only shaped like teardrops, right? So then we're only using 10% of our lung capacity. What we want you to do is be able to manipulate your belly when you're doing this breath. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is get into a nice, comfortable seated position, head, neck, and spine aligned. If you can, put your feet grounded on the floor. You're going to take your hand, you place your hand on your belly, and this is going to be your marker. Your belly is going to be your marker here. All the breathing is going to be in and out of our noses. So everyone, breathe in nice and deep through your nose and push your belly out as far as you can. Once you got your belly as far as you can, that's your hand right there. That's your marker. Exhale and pull your belly away from your hand and create space. Leave your hand there. Inhale deep again, pushing your belly back out to your hand. Exhale all the way up, pull your belly away from your hand again, creating that space. Inhale deep, belly back out towards your hand. Exhale and pull your belly away from your hand. Inhale deep, belly back out towards your hand. Exhale, pull your belly away from your hand. Imagine you're trying to get your belly button to touch your spine. We'll do a few more together. Inhale deep, belly out to your hand. Exhale and pull your belly away from your hand. 3 more together. Inhale deep, belly to your hand. Exhale and pull your belly away from your hand. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. 2 more. Inhale deep. Exhale it all out. Last one. Inhale deep. Push your belly out towards your hand. Exhale it all out, pulling your belly away from your hand towards your belly button. Imagine it's going to touch your spine. Now just take 3 deep breaths on your own. See how your body feels. See how your mind feels. This is when you're being a scientist and you're doing an internal assessment. You're checking to see if your mind is racing with thoughts are clear. Is your body more relaxed? Know that if you ever want to feel this way again, all you have to do is take a few deep breaths. When you finish, you can slowly, slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses. You still be getting yourself together, but I can also imagine most of us are in a pretty relaxed mood right now. You know, we're just here together, listening and conversing. So you may not have felt the benefits as much, but when you are in a heightened state or under duress or in a stressful situation with anxiety, if you're frustrated, whatever, try the technique then and really see the impact it's going to make, where it's going to shift you from sympathetic to parasympathetic and get you from your stressed and heightened state to your naturally relaxed state.
All right, so we're supposed to leave time for questions starting at 5:55. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that right now.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for your time and energy talking with us. Took away a lot. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, hi, I'm Renee. I'm an undergraduate student. I'm in the School of Engineering. I'm studying environmental engineering. And I'll start us off with our first question, if that's all right. I was wondering if you guys could discuss privilege and ability in relation to mindfulness. So, are there different levels of mindfulness that people should be engaged in based upon their privilege and access to resources? And how can we ensure that our mindfulness leads to a commitment to action?
I think a lot of that privilege. Great question, first of all, but I think a lot of that privilege can be related to trauma. A lot of the underserved communities that we live in have ACEs scores that are off the charts, adverse childhood experiences, and that's a correlation to trauma and leads to a lot of negative health outcomes. But I feel like when you don't have those ACEs and you haven't been traumatized, like you can jump into mindfulness in anywhere. You know what I mean? Like you can just say, hey, let's do a mindfulness meditation. You're just sitting in stillness. But when you have been traumatized, like a lot of those practices do more harm than good. Like you actually have to, you got to make the body a safe place first. Like like you don't feel safe in your body when you've been traumatized. You've had your power stripped away from you. Like that proprioceptive input is like sending fear signals to your brain from your body. So like if you can make your body safe, a safe place first, then you can start moving into the mind. So I feel like that's the only thing. I mean, it's like once that happens, then you can start to work with the breath, then you can start to work with meditations. But a lot of the meditations aren't those empty meditations that you might see in a mindfulness class. They're guided meditations where it's stillness, but it's a filled safe stillness. So it's not just that scary thing that where it's stillness and it allows the trauma to come up. I feel like that's the only thing, and it's seen as privileged. I mean, because it usually costs a lot of money. Like a lot of the retreat centers that we teach at, we couldn't have afforded to go to. Like when we first started doing this, like we'd have been sitting, like we wouldn't have been able to go. Like if we like they're beautiful places, but they're expensive as hell. Like yoga classes aren't cheap. Nice yoga equipment isn't cheap. Like yoga pants aren't cheap. Like you know what I mean? Like stuff like that stuff isn't cheap. And like even when you look at like Yoga Journal magazine, there's like most of the people on the cover look a certain way, like body type, color. So I think it's seen as privilege, but like the practices are for everybody. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people of color think that contemplative practice isn't for them because that's the way the narrative has been told. But even if you look at the most ancient statues, like if you look up ancient yoga statues, you'll notice that the people have like dreadlocks and big noses and big lips. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can tell what ethnicity they are, but somewhere that story's been kind of wiped out of history. You know what I mean? So it's just seen as a very privileged white thing, but it's not. It's the practice is literally for everybody. Like everybody has an inner life that they can connect to more. Everybody's dealing with stress. Everybody's dealing with depression. Like the human experience can kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like you and the practices help you to be able to fight back some. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that's for everybody, but just most people don't know it. It was funny because when we learned and taught in like a bubble where like we learned yoga and meditation from two Black men who were ex Panthers and into like SNCC and like all types of stuff like that. And then the first people we taught were 15 Black boys from West Baltimore. And I remember the first conference that we went to, we walked in there and like, oh my God, we're the only Black people here. Like we didn't even know that many white people doing yoga and meditation because that wasn't our frame of reference. But the thing is, like, that's the way that most of the conferences were. So, but yeah, just to say, like, it's for everybody, but it's seen as privilege. But like I think the only limitation is dealing with people's trauma first and then helping them with the practice instead of hurting them.
Thank you.
Ali, I even remember, Ali, remember when we went to Omega that one time, I think it was maybe Tim Ryan was speaking or someone, and Kwame was with us, and we had a whole rack of our guys with us, like 14 of us or something. We walk in and we're clearly the only people of color. And like the people are like, whoa, like, what are you doing here? And I remember Kwame had like his fangs, like his front fangs, and he like took them off, like, oh no, I'm the yoga teacher, man. And they were like, oh, and like, I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do, is kind of break those stereotypes and show people that this is for everyone, that hopefully, they don't keep asking Ali and Atma, oh, and myself, oh, y'all must be the band, because that's what they usually ask us when we go to conferences, right? So hopefully we're changing that, and we're showing people that this is for every single buddy, all colors, creeds, everything. Great question.
It got so annoying with the whole band thing that we ran with a story saying that we were an Aboriginal band from Australia. Andy was the vocals, Ali played the Borora, and I played the didgeridoo. And then later on, they would see us giving the keynote, and the people would feel dumb as hell, after they asked us that question. But it was fun messing with them.
Oh, goodness.
Hi, so I'm Victor. I'm a graduate student here at Tufts studying STEM education. And this question kind of filters into what you just said. But as a Latino growing up, a lot of mindfulness things or just emotions in general were pretty taboo for, male people in our family. And so I was just wondering, you talked a little bit about, how typically we see yoga as this white space, and you have to validate your existence in that space. But how do you go from the other side with communities of color or immigrant communities who maybe push back a little on mindfulness and, tapping into emotions? And I guess just kind of, what advice do you have on that?
Yeah, so I'm definitely in that same boat as you, buddy. I know how that is. I still, every time I go eat with my family, I'm the only vegetarian. And Puerto Ricans, they're just looking at me like, what happened to you? What is wrong with you? Right. So there are all sorts of things that come with, starting the practice and getting into it. I think one of the things we learned most was just trying to make it as practical and relatable as possible to people, so you don't have to use all this far out messaging. Like, we're very particular with our wording, and some, especially, a lot of Latino communities, man, they're very, very, like Christian or Catholic oriented. So when you talk about even the word yoga, some of them think that yoga is religion, and they're like, whoa, like, slow down. What do you mean? Like, are you crazy? That's not how you was raised. What are you talking about? That type of stuff, right? But when you start really meshing the concepts and showing the synergies in terms of philosophically that they're talking about the same thing, and making it so that you can relate to them with whatever their background is, what they're going through, and what their beliefs are, that yoga usually has those same concepts and beliefs. It's a matter of explaining to them in that way. So not going over their heads, but making sure that you understand the audience you're speaking to and speaking to them in that type of language. I remember after Hurricane Maria came to Puerto Rico, we went to the island and we did some stuff with a whole bunch of different communities there. And when they were talking to, like, Atman and I about stuff, you could tell people were kind of nervous about that happening. You could tell that people were like, I just don't know how well this is going to be received. We're going to go to this elderly home, so just be very careful. Don't say this and don't say that. And me and Atman kind of were just like, man, we're just going to be us, and we're going to continue to teach the way that we teach, and come from a heart-filled space, coming from an authentic, relatable space, and keeping it real, and just saying, hey, look, all of us are going through stuff at times. It's at one point, whether it's internally or what we're dealing with the outside world. What we're trying to do is just give you some techniques and some tools to allow you to help yourself get through this. And when you speak to people in that light where it's like, hey, I'm just here trying to help you and give you, it's like Atman said earlier, he was like, hey, look, that's just one of our tools. We're going to give you a few more tools, and hopefully one of these resonates with you. We're not shoving it down their throats, say, oh, this works, you have to do it. Give up your religion. Why are you praising that person? No, we don't say any of that stuff, because that's not how we are. We're a completely secular organization, a million different paths for a million different people. But we know through experience that these techniques work. And I think coming from that space of experience and authenticity is keeping it real, and then make it lighthearted and fun. You know what I mean? Like, Latinos like to have fun too. We're party animals, let's be honest, you know what I mean? So if you make it so it's a good time and people are laughing and enjoying it, I think it resonates with them. And then when they experience it, right? When they take those breaths the first time, that slows them down, or when they meditate the first time, you'll see it. They're going to open their eyes up and be like, wow, pero I can access this whenever I want to. Like, wow, So I think that's a big part. Just keep it real, be yourself, and they're going to love what you're trying to show them. I hope that helps.
And like Andy was saying, just to build off of that, just really quickly, if you want to get a book that will help you bridge, like, Catholicism or Christianity and like contemplative practice, a good book is The Holy Science by Swami Sri Jukesha, but it's spelled like Yukeswar, like Yukteswar. They have like passages from the Bible which correlate to contemplative practices, which you will help you be able to speak to them in their language, but still be able to get your point across and teach them the practices.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I've been thinking recently, sorry, once again, I'm Anna. I'm a grad student here at Tufts. And something I think that has been highlighted in our country in the past year really is the highly individualistic nature of our culture in some ways. And I'm wondering, how can we as individuals support our communities in being less individualistic and more collectivist in action when it comes to community care by using mindfulness? And also, how does that impact our mental health, either as individuals or, as a collective community?
So one of the coolest things about yoga, like is contemplative practice, is that like deep down spiritually, we're all connected. You know what I mean? Like the same light that shines in me is the same light that shines in you, is the same light that shines in everybody and everything. Like at its core. So you can't really not be compassionate and empathetic towards the people around you, because you're in, like, universally speaking, like you're ignoring a part of yourself. You know what I mean? And I think the hard part is that people aren't connected to themselves. So you can't ask somebody to care about their community or people around them or the environment or any of those other things if they don't care about themselves first. So I think the first thing that we usually do when we're working with any group or any demographic is getting them to connect to themselves first. Connect to themselves, love themselves first, and that love starts to ripple out and they can start to care about other people. And I think that like the mental health aspect of it, like a lot of suffering is like self-imposed. Like I feel like the being isolated and or feeling isolated causes a lot of suffering. Feeling like you don't have certain things, loving with expectations causes suffering. There's a lot of things that we do to create suffering in our own lives, but I think when we come from a truly like centered point of view of loving unconditionally, of being grateful for, like, gratitude, like it does a lot for mental health, because you're grateful for, because there's always somebody doing worse than you. And like if you can be grateful for the things that you have and that you've been blessed with, like that's a start. Or being in the present moment, you know what I mean? Like that does a hell of a lot for mental, because like, you know what I mean, you're in the past, it usually causes a lot of like anger because of things you missed out on. Being in the future causes a lot of worry because it's the things that are coming up. If you can be in the now, like it's a lot less stressful. Like there's a lot less going on in your mind, and just finding the stillness in your mind, because you feel like most of the time our minds are like just going and going and going and going and going and going and going. But feeling out, like figuring out how to find that, just that little bit of space and that little bit of peace between your thoughts, and being able to kind of hang out there for a little while brings some peace too.
And I also think that as far as dealing with the mental health, they show different parts of your brain through neuroscience, the damage that trauma and lack of having mental health does to you, whether it's like your vagus nerve, which is that connection with your mind and your body, or threat perception in communities that deal with direct trauma, secondary trauma, or intergenerational trauma. It's not firing properly, but there are certain practices that will, tap into making that vagus nerve be more connected and firing properly. And then, the evidence of, neuroplasticity, how, you can rewire your brain and heal yourself through these practices. It's just very healing, understanding the breath, different controlled breathing practices, and like Ali said, the bending and stretching to kind of make that body a safe place.
Thank you so much. That is really, really great advice. And I hope that that's useful also to other folks that are in the room. I know I will definitely be considering that in my practice. Thanks.
I have another question. I'd really love to hear everyone's thoughts on the growing market for mindfulness tools like apps. And do you think that people need to purchase things to engage in mindfulness? And do you think a dependence on these physical tools, is that limiting? Is that supportive for mindfulness? Anything there?
I mean, if it gets you on the path, it's a good thing. Like, there's a lot of resources. I remember our teacher used to always say that we were growing up in a great time to learn all these practices, because like if we'd have grown up like 1,000 years ago, you know what I mean? Like, we'd had to walk all these places to go learn from all these different teachers. But now, like, we can jump on our smartphone, we can jump on a computer, on a laptop, and you have access to so much information that's just right there at your fingertips. The tools are a great starting point, but at some point you're going to need some, like one of our mentors is this guy Mark Greenberg. He's a researcher that does a lot on social emotional learning. Have you ever heard of the PATHS program, promoting alternative thinking strategies? Like, he started that. Like, that's his brainchild. So like, he's deep thinking, and we had this conversation with him. Actually, awesome conversation. We were like walking the mud flats out behind his house from this when the tide had rolled out. And there's like all these seals swimming around. Like, it was beautiful. But we were talking about like online tools for mindfulness, and he was like, well, they're great to get you started, but you know, like we all know, like you need, some point you need that human to human interaction, because something's going to come up that you're going to need some advice on. But it's a great way to start. It's a great resource to have. It's a great tool to have, but at some point you need that human to human interaction to kind of take you deeper with the practice.
Yeah, I agree with Ali. I think that, you know, everyone has different ways of doing stuff, right? So if the app works for you, then use the app, right? If it doesn't, then maybe not. But if at the beginning that's what gets you going and gets you in your routine, then I think, yeah, you want to use that. It's like it's an assistant for you. But after a while, you probably want to wean yourself off the assistant so that you can do it on your own, so you're not dependent on the app. But I would try them. I would recommend trying to people, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to figure out what is your practice. You know, because all of us have different ways of doing this. So figure out what works for you. If you like the app, then roll with the app. If you don't like the app, then don't.
I highly recommend looking up the Involution group on Insight Timer if you're looking for an app.
Yeah.
I hear they're amazing.
Good, thank you.
Hi. So this question I also had, but it also came from an audience member. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on the role of fear and righteous anger in mindfulness and just social justice work in general.
So I think righteous anger is a beautiful thing, because like there are certain things that you should be pissed off about that happen in the world. You know what I mean? I think anger is one of those great, it like shines a spotlight on something. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's probably where your energy should be going, is like that, like you're pissed off about it for a reason. And because there's a lot of injustices in the world but I think the trick is not acting from anger, acting from a place of wisdom and love, and letting that like fueling, letting that you know what I mean? Because anger is like that fire that burns within you. Like, you can either let it just burn down the whole forest, or it can be like a controlled burn. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's all about using that anger to become aware, but then acting from a different place and not acting from anger. Because usually, I mean, nothing really comes good. Like, you don't really get any good from coming from a place of anger. So I think it is a great thing for awareness and letting you know where you need to act and put your energy.
Yeah, and fear and anger are human emotions. And what are we here for? We're here for the human experience, right? So these are emotions that we need to experience for a little while. But like Ali said, just don't let it control you. Ali, when he asked the question, I was like, I don't have to hit this. I know Ali's gonna say, because Ali always is about the righteous anger. It's so true. I'm the same way. Like, there are things in life that you have a right to be pissed off about, right? All of it, you know, there are things that you look at like, man, that's really screwed up. Like, I would think that if you didn't get angry with those things, then maybe then you should be looking into like what's wrong with you, because like some stuff is just like, so.
Yeah, and once again, like Ali was saying, like, get that anger to help you identify things that are unjust. But if you act on that anger, you'll react to stuff, and that kind of leads down a bad path. But if you act from a place of wisdom and love, you'll be able to respond like playing chess. You know what I mean? Like, you think a couple moves ahead, and you know, if you do this, it's gonna make them, you know. So definitely, you know, roll with identify things out of righteous anger, and I forgot the other word you said, but walk and talk from a place of love and wisdom so you can respond instead of react.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, I just want to take a moment here to wrap things up and say thank you to all of our campus partners and presenters. Ali, Atman, Andres, I know that this has been a really profound and moving practice for me, and I am eager to incorporate some of these strategies that we talked about today together into my own practice. And I think one thing that sticks with me the most is the idea of yoga being, a union or a reunion between our bodies and our minds. And so much of what we need right now in our community, however you define that community, is that reunion and that togetherness. So many, many thanks to you for sharing your wisdom and your words with us. And with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful night and a peaceful week. Thank you.
Thank you so